Well, we are going to get started. Chicago, welcome, Marissa. Thank you to everyone joining us from across the country and around the world today. I am Michael Higgs, Conscious Capitalism Virtual Program Manager. And on behalf of the entire CCI team, we appreciate you taking time to learn and grow in community with us today. Today, we're excited to be sharing space with Elizabeth Fretheim. She's the VP of Sustainability at the Freeman Company. As many of you know, Conscious Capitalism is a global community of CEOs, presidents, founders, board members, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from diverse industries, backgrounds, and perspectives who are committed to the shared purpose of elevating humanity through business. Our organization was founded in 2008 as a 501c3 to provide a community of active operating leaders a platform to share practical advice and tools on how our principles are integrated into different organizations and within various industries. Our community of conscious capitalists offers best practices and business strategies on how those philosophies are applied to create sustainable success within one's business, leading to systemic change and impact in the world. As many of you know, if you've joined us previously, we offer our virtual gatherings. It's a way for the community to see how our philosophy takes shape in the leadership journeys and business practices of those in our network. A few housekeeping details for our conversation today. We'll be in conversation for about 45 minutes. We'll start with a chat between Elizabeth and I for about 25 to 30 minutes. Questions are welcome throughout the presentation, so feel free to drop those into chat. And then for the last part of our session, we are going to close with some Q&A. But again, feel free to drop into chat any questions that might come up for you while we're in conversation. To set the context for today's conversation, just a little bit of background. Freeman is an events company with nearly a century of innovation under its belt. It's mastered the art of adaptation and strategic foresight. Their secret to thriving through decades of industry shifts and global changes, a relentless commitment to improvement encapsulated in their pivotal question, how can we improve? Their 2023 impact report reveals just how seriously they take this inquiry. At Freeman, improvement isn't just a goal, it's a continual pursuit that benefits everyone they serve, from educators and tech entrepreneurs to small businesses and local communities. This dedication is evident in the way that Freeman puts people at the heart of everything they do, ensuring fair and sustainable event delivery. As a family-owned business, they hold themselves accountable, not just to their clients, but to the planet and the communities they're part of. In today's virtual gathering, Elizabeth Fretheim, VP of Sustainability at Freeman, we're going to dive into the 2023 Impact Report. We're going to explore some of the strategies behind their significant, measurable impact in two of the key areas of the Impact Report, the people and the planet portion. We hope to surface and learn how Freeman is setting the standard for future generations with a goal of achieving net zero carbon. A little bit of biographical information on our host today. Elizabeth Fretheim is the VP of Sustainability for the Freeman Company, where she's responsible for developing and leading the strategy to operationalize sustainability into the business for the achievement of Freeman's commitment to net zero carbon by 2050. Prior to Freeman, she was at Nikola Corporation, a zero-emission vehicle infrastructure company, where she was the head of sustainability and ESG, leading the development and execution of strategies to improve the sustainability of their products and operations. Her professional tenure includes serving as the Senior Director of Sustainability for Walmart, where she was responsible for the sustainability efforts of the supply chain, which represented over 200 distribution centers and the third largest private trucking fleet in the US. She has a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Calgary and gained an interest and appreciation for sustainability through her work in remote northern regions of Canada with the Aboriginal people. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I saw Canada drop in the list. I was like,
yeah, yes. Shout out Canada. Wonderful. Well, again, to our audience that's here, thank you for joining us today in conversation with Elizabeth. We actually wanted to begin by yay, Canada, not sorry. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna put a few resources just to help inform the conversation. The first thing I want to share in chat is just a link to the 2023 impact report. Feel free to follow along. This will sort of be the guiding document for today's conversation. So feel free to pull that up. It's a shared resource. Download the PDF, follow along. Again, we'll be focusing on both the planet as well as the people sections of that report. But to kick things off, just to visualize Freeman's work, we wanted to share a YouTube video with you, which give me one moment to pull that up. And we will, it's about a 2-minute long video.
We are Freeman. We create live experiences where innovation, change, and purpose come together.
We bring people face to face with new possibilities, new ways of living and thinking, new creations, and new inventions.
The moments we create deliver social connection, knowledge, prosperity, and economic impact.
Every day, we make real change possible by connecting people in meaningful ways.
We are Freeman.
We have the opportunity and responsibility to advance society and elevate the human experience.
We are dedicated to helping the most advanced organizations and brands achieve their missions, reach new audiences, tell new stories, and make the world a better place.
After weathering storms of the past and present, we have a unique perspective on the rapidly changing global marketplace.
Our customers expect us, as leaders in the industry, to have insight and provide guidance about our changing business and world.
We're Freeman. We stand as a living expression of our values: integrity, empathy, innovation, enthusiasm, and learning mindset.
We are committed to fostering an inclusive culture centered on equity, empowerment, respect, and belonging, where diverse viewpoints and individual expression are revered.
We believe the future depends on the sustainable work we do today, so we work to discover innovative solutions to protect the environment.
We are always evolving to be better. Together, we continue designing the Freeman we aspire to become.
We build on the foundation of our history and legacy to connect people in meaningful ways, which makes real change possible.
Change that truly matters.
We are Freeman.
We make moments that matter.
Hopefully that video helped to share some context around Freeman's work. And I think to start things off, one of the things I want to do is I want to surface something, a quote from the introductory letter to the impact report from Bob Priest-Heck, the CEO of Freeman. And one of the things he says is our approach, the Freeman approach, can be summed up by one simple question: what can we do better? Continuous improvement is a habit, but over the years, we've come to realize that the mandate to do better demands closer inspection. Better for whom? Doing better means doing better for everyone we serve. And frankly, we serve everyone. And, that so resonated with me, particularly in the context of conscious capitalism, when we, one of our tenets being stakeholder orientation, factoring in all of the stakeholders in our ecosystem. And I just wanted to highlight kind of the alignment there between our work and the work that you're doing, Elizabeth. And as we dig in a little bit to your work as VP of Sustainability and specifically around the things that you are doing with your initiatives, I'll just kind of broadly put it as your environmental initiatives. The first thing I wanted to dig into a little bit was, what is this net zero carbon events initiative? And how does the collaboration work amongst all your various stakeholders?
Yeah, we're so excited to be part of this initiative, and Freeman was a founding signatory of the initiative. And when you talk about collaboration, that was really the driver to be a part of it. So Net Zero Carbon Events is a global initiative within the events industry, and it includes the entire ecosystem of companies that are involved. So and appreciate the patience on showing that video, because I do think it's important. I joke that Freeman is probably one of the larger companies that you don't know that you actually do know. You say, I work for Freeman, people are like, what? But we have such a, even Freeman has a very diverse offering across the events industry. Everything from designing and building booths and experiences all the way through the execution. But it also takes, the show organizers, it's the attendees, it's the venues, it's the transportation companies that are moving things, it's the what we call EACs, which are basically companies that will come in and build the booths. It's the food and beverage companies, all of us coming together to bring an event together, the travel, right? The airlines, the hotels, the Ubers, the Lyfts, all of those. So it's a very diverse industry with a lot of tentacles and a lot of dominoes that can, as you're trying to improve this, you can start having a lot of unintended consequences. So we thought it was really important that we work to bring the industry together so that we can move forward together. And I think that's important, so that we start to drive scale, we start to drive efficiency, we start to drive standards and how we're looking at this, so that we're all measuring ourselves and our progress forward. And, quite honestly, it's something that I have always loved about sustainability, is that it's kind of this pre-competitive area where you're sitting side by side with your competitors, or I like to say peers, in moving things forward. So right now, and just in case any of you are in any of those categories I talked about, please join us. We're actively, especially trying to bring in more participation from North America. But we spent the first really few years, defining what we wanted to do, looking at where are the biggest impacts within the event space. And interestingly enough, the largest impacts is generally from attendee travel. So especially flights coming in, the hotels, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the trains, all of those things. So identifying what they were, and then starting to build guidance of how can you start impacting in each of those areas. And now we're shifting more into projects where we're starting to look at how do we affect change, coming together and really pushing the industry.
Yeah, one of the things, I just want to jump back to a point you made. Yes, if you've gone to a corporate event or you've gone to an event, you've had a Freeman experience. And I actually come from an events background, Elizabeth, both music touring and corporate events. So
That's awesome.
Very familiar with Freeman and your business. And the way that I think about it is you really create these worlds. I love the tagline, making moments that matter, right? But you create these incredibly immersive worlds that emerge and then collapse. And then there's all the logistics in the background, moving things around. I mean, it's such a unique industry in that the operations and the logistics, for a workforce, I think you have 4,500 people at Freeman now?
So those are full-time employees, but if you include all of our union partners and people on sites, we can swell up to, I think around 30,000 or so, that help support these events. So, I mean, when I first joined about 1.5 years ago, someone described it to me as building a city and taking it down, a few days later. And it really is that. If you watch, I mean, you maybe saw it a little bit on the video, where they're coming in and it's like, boop, 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 and then it all comes down. And there's so much behind getting all of that to come together, not only from the Freeman side, but again, that entire ecosystem of everybody coming together. So it's a fascinating industry.
Yeah, and I think to go a level deeper there, when we do talk about the steps that you're taking to reduce, Freeman had identified what I think you refer to as emission categories, and there's 3 scopes. And if you wanted to share the slide, we could do that, or I'm happy to talk to those as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy, and I'd love to say that we came up with the scopes of emissions, but there were a lot smarter people that came up with that through WRI and the GHG protocol. But it's for those of you that are familiar, and let me see if I can bring this up. Actually, I'm going to put a different slide up first where we can maybe talk about that. But when you are trying to impact and affect change, as the adage goes, you've got to be able to measure it to manage it. And so what this does, let me put it into presentation mode. There we go. Can you see the slide?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Awesome. You really need to be able to measure your impacts. And so what the GHG protocol does is gives you a way of approaching that. And they have emissions, the 3 categories of emissions, and there's some conversations around a 4th and maybe even a 5th. But these are the basic ones. And so scope 1 is where you are generating the emissions within your own operation. So think about burning fuel in a truck, or when you're using natural gas for heat, things like that, where you're actually generating the emissions. Scope 2 is generally electricity. So the emissions are generated off-site often. But you have some control over those emissions. There can also be purchase of heat and cooling. And then scope 3 is everything else. And scope 3 is a huge bucket of your entire value chain and your entire ecosystem. So think about, like in our case, right, we're using a lot of carpet in our business. What are all the emissions that are generated from producing the raw material of the carpet, of actually manufacturing the carpet, of transporting the carpet? But then can also include things like our own business travel, our employee commuting, all of the purchased goods, our transportation that we use to move things around. And so, like most service-oriented companies, the large majority of emissions are generated within that value chain, within that ecosystem. And so a little bit more difficult, I probably get from my other people in sustainability to be like, a little bit, Elizabeth, definitely more difficult to impact and affect than scope 1 and 2, where you really have direct control over a lot of what you do in those 2 scopes. So we did do a full inventory last year, and it's something that we're going to continue to do every year, so that we're ensuring that we can not only track our progress, but it gives you such great insight into where your impacts are, so that you can better direct your efforts.
Yeah, I thought, despite the challenges in scope 3, right, because it's sort of out of your domain of control, I thought that Freeman had some really innovative ideas around, I think you talk about sourcing eco-focused travel partners, and then with employees, the hybrid work arrangements as well. So just some creative ways to kind of tackle that more difficult scope 3 category.
Absolutely. And it drives partnerships. And going back to what Bob said about everyone, right? It's really working with everyone. And how do we educate? How do we collaborate with all of our partners, with our employees? How do we get them involved? How do we get them engaged, empowered? to be looking, because, I have a small team of 4 out of those 4,500 people, and then many more thousands when we have an event. And so it's so important that that we engage all of our employees in this, so that they're looking in their little corner of the world and seeing where they can push things forward. Our procurement team, our design teams, our operators, all of those are looking for where they can impact.
Yeah, just beyond sort of the standard emission reduction initiatives, some things that might fall into scope 1, right, around logistics and clean idling of your transportation vehicles. What are some of the other innovative solutions or technologies that you're exploring for more sustainable events and operations?
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to PowerPoint y'all to death.
Just 2 slides, we promise.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple of slides. So a little bit easier to follow on. And this is in our roadmap that we also just recently released, and we'll send you a link to this report as well. But as I mentioned, there's so many tentacles to our business, right? It's our own operations where we have vehicles, we have warehouses, we have offices, we have forklifts, and then all of the electricity used. And then think about all the things that you see when you come to an event, right? You see all the hanging signs, and there's all the rigging, there's the audio visual, there's the exhibits themselves, there's experiences, there's signage, graphics, carpets, flooring, all of those things. And so we already tested a couple of electric vehicles. For example, we've ordered a couple more now that are going to be implemented into our business. And it's interesting how I've been, as you mentioned, I was at Walmart for 10 years, and we had drivers trying the electric vehicles, and they generally love them. If you look at, I was actually just watching a review from Schneider, one of the larger trucking carriers, and they had drivers that were saying if they were going to be told that they were going to have to get back into a diesel truck, they said that was the day they were going to be sick and not come into work, because they just loved those vehicles. So we talk a lot about how sustainability can make business sense, and that's when you're looking at things like that. We're really working with a lot of our suppliers on things like better carpets, better programs, better materials, where we're switching from fossil fuel based to more sustainable. And you see, when you read the impact report, you'll see the impact that we've had on reducing polyfoam and replacing that with honeycomb, which is paper-based and recycling, and cheaper, by the way. So it really makes sense as we push these things forward. And then the other part I want to emphasize, because it is so important to sustainability, is expanding our rental programs and encouraging reuse, right? Rather than coming in, buying furniture for the one time, at the booth, and then, unless the venue or the organizer or somebody is supporting a donation program on the other side, that furniture that is probably in great shape, is going to end up in the landfill. So we're really trying to make sure that we have a variety and a breadth of programs, so that the attendees, the show management, the exhibitors can rent from us and ensure that that's going to be reused again, because that's such a big part. And there's just little things like encouraging the organizers not to put dates on certain signs, right? So then they can reuse them next year, because a lot of these are annual events. Now, branding may change, messaging may change, etc. But there's probably a lot of signage that you see that doesn't have to have a date on it. And so that it can be reused again.
Yeah, you're touching on something, which is the waste hierarchy, which, full disclosure, I'm actually going to print out and put in my home, because I just I think it's incredible. And for the benefit of the audience, I think we all learned the 3 R's, right? There's reduce, reuse, and recycle. But in the annual report, you'll find that there's actually there's 5, and it's an upside down triangle. And so it's prevent, reuse, recycle, or excuse me, prevent, reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and dispose. Which I just think is awesome. At the top of the pyramid is, how do we prevent, right? How do you, make a decision, make a choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you really think about what you're bringing in, like we talk a lot about the tchotchkes or the giveaways, right? How do you start to make those more meaningful to the attendees and customers? If you don't need it, think again about bringing it in the first place. Ironically, it's in North America, the exhibitors tend to be better about reusing booths and exhibits. Over in Europe, they have more of a challenge with what they call build and burn, which basically means, the exhibitors come in, they build the exhibits generally out of wood, and then at the end it's just left behind. And so it's really unfortunate, and that's where we can offer more innovative solutions. And we have within, I don't want to make this a Freeman marketing spiel, but we have a huge array of booths and furniture and cabinetry and audiovisual and carpets and all of those things, so that won't happen. And we are trying to build donation processes and donation programs, so that when things are left at the end of show, that we have outlets for them. Now, this is where size, when I was at Walmart, I used to say being big is good and then being big is bad. And sometimes with your size, some of these shows, we can have literally truckloads of things left behind, and a small local charity, at first they're excited, and then you roll up with 3 semis and they're like, oh, wait a second, you really meant you had donations.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? Is the or one person's trash is another person's treasure. Schools will take vinyl banners, they'll take fabric, again, thousands of square yards, probably not, but it's amazing how innovative people are when they're looking to reuse something.
Yeah, there's an innovative program it reminds me of, as a former San Francisco resident. The local, the Recology is the name of the business, but they actually have an artist in residence program, and they do a gallery showing every year of all of the materials that have come in and been collected and repurposed for artists to utilize. It's a neat. Is a very neat gallery and a very neat event, again, like the reusing of things, right?
Absolutely. And the biggest challenge, ironically, to a lot of these programs is the logistics, right? Because you want to be able to store a volume and then be able to ship a volume to an organization that's going to do something about it. So that's where we're really trying to gather the data so that we understand what we're generating, because then that starts to ignite the juices of some of the entrepreneurs and other companies out there. Because if you say like, hey, I'm going to send you 10 of something, they're like, yeah, we can't get overly innovative for that. But when you say, hey, look, I'm going to send you 1 million, then they're like, oh, wait a second,
right, we can work with that. Yeah,
I may have something.
Yeah. So before we jump into the people section, one last question. I had for you is what metrics or data are being tracked to measure waste reduction? I mean, you alluded to it a little bit, but are there internal dashboards? Are there things that you're really keeping track of?
Yeah, and I would say waste is one of the tougher things to measure, because you really do want to get down to the material level, right? And trust me, I have jumped into a lot of dumpsters in my time. In fact, I just hired somebody. We were in Vegas. We were walking along. This was her first show with me. And we were about to walk into the building and I saw dumpsters and I was like, wait, hold on 1 second. And I walked over and started climbing up and she joked, she said, I have found my home. I was like, that's awesome. But so we're really working with, what we've done is we have launched what we call green teams at every branch. And so we have a leader at every branch and office, and then we have team members that are made of diverse parts of that branch, right? So we might have someone in operations, someone from logistics, someone's from facility management. And we have over 200 members, I think now, of these green teams. And so we're really leveraging those teams to better understand what they're seeing on site, where they see the opportunities are. We've asked them to look in their dumpsters and tell us, what are the top 3 things that you're seeing in there, so that we can start to build those. And really start building best practices across our branches. Waste can be very challenging because, this jurisdiction offers this capability, that jurisdiction does not. Those types of things, and our branches are different. So working with our waste vendors to provide better reporting. So not only just how many square yards, but what are they seeing in there? Working with vendors that have capabilities in order to segregate the waste and then provide us the reporting. And again, there's things like, we have a fabrication shop in Dallas. And when I first walked in, I saw all of this piping running all over the building. And I was like, it was sort of this weird, translucent piping. I was like, is that some kind of ventilation thing? And it was like, no, they're actually vacuums that when they're sawing or cutting wood or different materials, I guess it's all the wood, but it sucks up the sawdust. It goes into a container and the company takes it away. And now it's used in different concrete as a concrete fill sort of in the mixture. So being able to look at the tons of waste, being able to look at it segregated, and you really have to start at your largest generating items and, knock off that one and then start looking and really going down that list. I talk about, I think in sustainability, you can get very overwhelmed with how much there is to do. And so I talk about the 4 I's. And the first is knowing your impact. The second is seeing where can you actually influence. Third is, what are you interested in working on? Because even if you have influence, you can only do so much. And then it's looking at innovation for those. So the impact, influence, interest, and innovation is how we're starting to tackle some of this.
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to add those to the chat. I think I got all of those. The 4.
Impact, influence, interest, innovation. Perfect.
All right. Nailed it. Okay, before we jump to the well, actually, let's get into the people section. I wanted to surface something from the impact report, which just acknowledged that you truly do have a multi-generational workforce. I think that every generation is represented at Freeman, and incredibly remarkable, a 92.3% retention rate for employees. But as Freeman says, we know there's always more to do. So taking a step back before we jump to a question actually from Alfredo. Thanks for the question, Alfredo. We'll get to that in one moment. But what are some of the programs at Freeman that you're particularly proud of when it comes to empowering employees?
Yes. I can honestly tell you that, when I came to Freeman, that was one of the first things that really hit me about the culture of Freeman. So when I first joined, and when I was talking about coming over to Freeman, my now boss was saying, Elizabeth, the company's really behind sustainability and everybody's very engaged and everybody's interested. And for anybody else that's in sustainability, you take that with a little grain of salt, right? You're like, we'll see. And so I came in and they made my announcement, and immediately people from all levels in all functions were reaching out, right? How can I help? What can I do? I've been looking at this. I've been trying out that. And so, that whole, you saw in the video, the focus on innovation and learning mindset, and that people really feel empowered to do that, I think is so great. One of the initiatives I'd love to talk about is our BRGs, so all of our business resource groups. We have ones for mental health and wellness, LGBTQIA, I hope I said that all, plus women, veterans, etc. And so those are ones, and it's not only that we have those groups, it's that they're really run by the employees, right? We have people that are passionate about it, and they are the ones that are driving the initiative and figuring out the various programs and offerings and events and things like that, and that we're all encouraged to participate in it. We're a big supporter and actually founding partner of Diversity in Design, which you probably also saw in the report, which is an initiative that is working to change what is really underrepresented are the Black creatives within the design industry. And again, that's something where our employees are empowered to be a part of. They go to these events, they go out to the schools to really volunteer and help drive it. And I think, I've really seen where that's encouraged. Our green teams that I talked about, right? Those are really led by people that are passionate about sustainability. And it's funny, when we were looking for leaders, we had a lot of people come to us and say, I really want to lead a group, but I'm not an expert in sustainability. And we were like, perfect. That's exactly what we need. We want somebody who's passionate about it, that understands the business, because I can come to you with any number of weird and wonderful ideas, but it needs to work in the business. And so we really wanted people that were there and felt empowered and wanted to learn about sustainability and then figure out, how does that fit into their branch? Because every one of our branches is different, right? So we really wanted people that passion piece was so important.
Yeah, I think that does a wonderful job of answering Alfredo's question, which is around that alignment, right? Like, how do you align sustainability, your goals in leadership, with the interests of team? So it sounds like there's a ton of opportunities, and also welcoming those that maybe don't feel like subject matter experts into the conversation, which leads me to the next question. One of your core values is the learning mindset. And I know a lot of people are always interested in, how do you embed that learning mindset into the culture?
Yeah, and I think, at Freeman, I would say we don't only encourage it, we really celebrate it, right? We really encourage people to go out and to learn. In sustainability, We have had a lot of people that have said, they want to know more. And so we just had about 30 people from various functions go through you have all these acronyms, then you're trying to remember. But it's basically a professional certification in sustainability and being able to learn. So, we think about, we just released a lot of training courses this year, LinkedIn Learning, resources. We encourage people to go out and find things specific to their function and being able to learn. We have all kinds of training for people leaders and people that want to progress and become people leaders, because that can be a scary place in itself. I mean, it's been probably too many years since I was new in the workforce, but I remember the first time I was going to lead somebody, and I'm like, I can't lead myself. Like, who's going to follow me? But there's just those basic things that to make sure people feel comfortable. And I think the more you learn, the more you want to learn, and the more you become innovative, and you really try to expand your curiosity around what you're doing and how we can improve and move forward. And there's things, we offer courses in person, we offer virtual learning, et cetera. So I think we just really try to embed it in the culture through how, the offerings that we provide, and continuing to promote and encourage it with our own teams.
Yeah, I was thinking back to some of the metrics that you share as far as the participation levels for learning webinars and learning experiences. And yeah, you seem to have done a remarkable job kind of activating that curiosity, creating the pathways and supporting that learning mindset. I want to respect everyone's time. I know we have about a minute or so left, which is, I feel it's been an incredibly fruitful conversation, but Elizabeth, are you able to go maybe 2 or 3 minutes over?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And sorry, I'd missed, I had the chat open, but not the Q&A.
Oh, no worries.
There we go.
Yeah, and I think we did Alfredo, let us know in chat if there's something maybe we missed. But I feel like Elizabeth shared with us around that alignment with her sustainability goals and activating the team and how to enroll them in that process. If there are any last minute questions, drop them into the chat. Otherwise, Elizabeth, I'll have one final question for you. Which is simply, what are 2 to 3 things that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I love that last topic that we just talked about, right? Be curious, be learning. Don't get overwhelmed by what's out there. Each of us, I think sometimes when you think about all of these things, like I said, you can get overwhelmed, and look at your own corner of what interests you and what you can change. Collaborate, reach out to people and organizations that you might not have thought of before, including sometimes the government, right? I know that's a scary place, but it's amazing the resources and what they're trying to do and in partnership. But like I said, even your competitors, your peers, your suppliers, that that is a drum I will beat probably till the end of my days, is that collaboration and bringing people together, because you really need that scale to move things forward. And then just get on the path. Don't let, Michael and I were talking about this a little bit before, but don't let perfect get in the way of good. Get on the path, start looking at what you can do across the spectrum of planet, people, and principles. There are so many opportunities, and know that it is good for business. That Michael, you talked about conscious capitalism and everything that you're trying to do, and I think When you look at how it engages your employees, at how it engages your stakeholders more broadly, there's just so many benefits to it that, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here based on
Indeed.
the venue, but yeah, absolutely get involved, reach out. And if there is, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or, Michael has my contact, happy to engage and discuss.
Wonderful. Yeah. So for those that are listening, LinkedIn is the best way to stay in touch with Elizabeth. Connect, reach out. I just love the spirit of collaboration and the invitation, right? I mean, we're best when we collaborate and think together and design together and solve together. So
Absolutely.
I did put a link to a quick survey that does help inform our future programming. So if you've got 30 seconds, it's 3 questions. Go ahead and answer that. That would be helpful for me. And then if you are a founder or CEO and are interested in attending our CEO Summit in Austin, our premier event, and Elizabeth, I have to say this, we're very mindful of designing for sustainability. We rack our brains every year how to be sustainable with that event, and we try to do better every year.
Fantastic.
And then lastly, I know this is very last minute, but if you are in the Dallas area or willing to travel, at the end of the week, we are having our Dallas conference hosted by our Dallas chapter. And that is an event you can find some information in the chat about as well. Elizabeth, I can't thank you enough for your time and your insight and your wisdom. Thank you for stepping through that impact report. For those that are listening, we will have a recording available. There's a slide which I'll share that will allow you to access both the impact report as well as the roadmap that we discussed during this conversation. But
yeah, thank you. We really appreciate being invited to share with you all.
Absolutely. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you're joining us from. And again, Elizabeth, thanks again for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Be
Bye-bye.
sustainable.
Yeah, be sustainable. There you go. Closing words. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks.